From the land of 10,000 lakes and just as many heartaches, welcome to the 301 Show. We're here to celebrate, commiserate, and maybe, just maybe, see a Minnesota team win it all. Whether you're dreaming of a Vikings Super Bowl, reliving the glory days of the Twins, or still recovering from the Timberwolves roller coaster, we've got you covered. This is the 301 Show, where the North remembers and the passion never fades.
Yes, welcome into the 301 Show, episode 33. We've got a great episode here for you today. We've got some predictions here on the Vikings schedule, as promised, the best and worst case scenario, plus an overview of their preseason game against the New England Patriots. And the New York Times sent out a thing about the Minnesota Wild, and we will link that down below, and we will go over it in the Rinkside Rundown. That and more taking place here on the 301 Show, episode 33 today. Let's get into it. All right, going on to the Wolves Den here. We will start with the Timberwolves. Only had one thing really happen in the last week about the Timberwolves, but then we will get into the Lynx. They only played one game, but there's obviously a lot more there to talk about. The Timberwolves, though, did waive Jesse Edwards, and he, more of a G League two-way guy that wasn't going to get any rotation time this year, so just opening up like a depth G League roster spot at this point, and that's all there really is about the Timberwolves. But on to the Lynx. They did play one game this past week, and that was against the New York Liberty, again in a rematch of last year's WNBA Finals. They did win 86-80 in that game. They will play the New York Liberty again at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, August 19th. That is tomorrow if you are watching this on the day that I am recording it. Then they play at the Atlanta Dream at 6:30 on Thursday, August 21st. And then they go to Indiana to play the Fever and finish out their road trip in Indianapolis against Caitlin Clark on Friday, the next day, August 22nd, before they return home to play the said Indiana Fever at 6 p.m. on Sunday, August 24th. So 3-game road trip before they return back home. And if you look at their rankings right now, they are 28-5 on the season is their record. That is still good for number one in the WNBA. Points for per game is 86.9 points, and that is number one. Field goal percentage, shooting percentage is 47.0, number one. 3-point percentage is 36.9. That is number one in the WNBA. Free throw percentage, they are down at 10th, and that is 76.9%. Rebounds per game, 34.2 rebounds per game. That is 6th. Again, that field or free throw percentage is a big thing, but it is another thing that is just there's a lot of things there's an extremely volatile stat. Like I feel like their rankings jump on that one a lot. It's very close amongst the WNBA. Blocks per game, they're at 5.1 blocks per game. That again is number one still. Turnover differential per game. Again, I've been harping on this one. This is the biggest red flag about this team for me. And again, I said the biggest. That doesn't mean that it's it is a massive red flag, but it is the biggest red flag on this team because of how good everything else is. They are minus 2.4 turnover differential per game, which is 12th in the WNBA. So they did move down a spot. They are second last in the turnover differential. So they need to take care of the ball. But even the fact that they aren't, they are still putting up the most points per game. And next thing we're going to go over is points against per game. But they are 75.8 points against per game, which is the fewest in the WNBA. So the fact that they are turning the ball over 2.4 times more than they're taking it away, that's not leading to other teams scoring more than they are. Like their opponents still, 11.1 points less per game than the Lynx are. So they are not letting the teams. That's it. In the NFL, this is the best way for me to describe it. In the NFL, the Vikings defense last year, they gave up, I think it was a bottom 10 yards per game team, but their defense was, and like they gave up like the 10, like in the NFL of the 32 teams, they were bottom 10 in most yards given up. So they had given up the most yards per game by teams. They were in the bottom 10 of that. If number one is the least amount of yards per game and 32 is the most amount of yards per game, they were in that bottom 10. But they were in the top 4 or 5 all season for points against per game. So they were fantastic when they actually needed it. And that is what the Lynx are doing is they might turn the ball over, and there might be, the other team might be putting up a ton of shots, but they're not scoring on the shots. The shots on goal, the shots on the hoop, the shots on goal. I'm a hockey fan, so the shots don't matter. It's if the shots go in is what matters the most. And what the Lynx are doing is they're not going in. So they are, again, doing great on the defensive side. Just got to clean up the turnover differential a little bit. And if they can do that, this team might go down as the greatest team in history with how dominant they are in the rest of these categories. So field goal percentage against, 3-point field goal percentage against, they are top 3 in both of those. They're second in field goal, third point, and 3-point. They're tied for 5th in rebounds against per game, and they are tied for 1st in blocks against per game. So they're not even getting blocked as much as any other team is. So again, I at this point I don't know what else to praise this team about, because I feel like I've said everything that they are doing well. So, yeah, good thing for them. They continue to roll here, and yeah, let's move on to predictions. The Lynx also helped me get the one prediction that came off the board correct. I said that they will beat the Liberty on Saturday, which they did, 86-80. So. Moving to that brings my totals up to 20 correct out of 65 for 31%, and that first one to 20 total correct predictions. So that one, the Wolves Den is sitting at number 1 for total correct predictions. Got 3 going on the board now. I said that the Lynx will go above 500 in their next 4 games. So they will win 3 or 4 games against the Liberty, Dream, and then Fever twice on the 3-game road trip, and then the 1 game back in Minnesota. Said they will also win at least 2 of the 3 remaining games against Caitlin Clark and the Fever. So they have 2 in the next week, and then 1 as one of the final couple games of the regular season. So that is just the regular season games. They will win at least 2 of those 3 games. And then the final one, they're sitting at a 6-game winning streak, and their winning streak will hit at least 8 games. So they will beat the Liberty in New York and the Dream in Atlanta. Yeah, now moving on to the Nordic Report. The Vikings' second and final home preseason game took place this past Saturday at noon, and the New England Patriots came to town. The Patriots did end up winning 20-12. A couple of things I noticed from this game. First, it doesn't look like the Patriots had a great joint practice because Mike Vrabel sent the first team out for the entirety of the first quarter and needed to see them play the entire first quarter before he took them out of the game. So that wasn't great. Second thing, if KOC wants to do an interview during the third quarter of every single game, I wouldn't mind that at all. He was fantastic to see. Now, obviously, he's going to be calling plays, so he obviously won't be doing that during the regular season. But he was fantastic during this preseason game to listen to, and to listen to him live during an actual preseason game, it was even better. Like it was great to see him live. So that was fantastic too. I think he did drop an F-bomb on TV when I forget who it was, but one of the receivers, they were playing all their backup receivers or like the bubble receivers at the time, and they got hit with a snap motion penalty, and the first down got taken back. So it was that's when he dropped an F-bomb there. But yeah, again, anytime he wants to do that, I'm all in favor of that. But then I also noticed that two things on the kicking game. First thing is that Oscar Chapman was holding kicks for Will Reichert, not Ryan Wright, and Oscar Chapman did some of the punting too. So it was interesting to see that, like, it seems like there is actually more of a QB battle there, or not a QB battle, excuse me, a punting battle there than I think we initially thought. I think people thought that Ryan Wright was a shoo-in for the punting job, but Oscar Chapman could very well be punting, and I think they're going to need to get a new punter here at some point because Ryan Wright seems to have declined in production the last couple of years. But yeah, if they can, if that's Oscar Chapman, then that's Oscar Chapman. But on the other side, Will Reichert, the one actually doing the kicking, did go 4 for 4 on field goals with a 54-yarder. And again, a lot of these stats in the preseason just I don't really care about. I do care sometimes if it's a if they're playing terribly against third stringers, then they then that says more to me than them playing good against third stringers. But the kicking game, the field goals and extra points are the closest. Like that to me, there's not as much of a skill gap between the top guys and the bottom guys on those. Like there is a skill gap, don't get me wrong, but like Will Reichert going 4 for 4 with a 54-yarder is still fantastic on the day. Like this 54-yarder was as long, and again that was fantastic. If this was an actual game, you'd like the Vikings to go, actually score touchdowns instead of kicking 4 field goals. But again, I thought that was great. So Will the Thrill looking great during games. I do think that they are in desperate need of a QB2. I don't think the QB2 is on the roster right now because Sam Howell is just based, like, I don't think Sam Howell was high on KOC's list of quarterbacks he wanted. I think he when he was going out to get a quarterback, I think he would have rather had a different one, like a Daniel Jones or a Joe Flacco. But Sam Howell at that point was the only one left on the market, and they'd rather have Sam Howell than a Brett Rippon. But at this point, it looks like Max Brosmer might be the QB2. Instead of Sam Howell. I'm not saying he will be the QB2, but he looks like he's going to be higher on the depth chart than Sam Howell will. And I just think that they are going to make one more final move before week 1 in Chicago, and have that be a QB2. So again, that was accentuated by a play that seemed to be summarize Sam Howell's entire career up to this point, where he tried to throw it out of bounds and was in the air and threw it and got no power out of his from his legs, and it fell right into the hands of one of the Patriots defenders, and just did not look like a good pass. Like, it was just not a good pass. And yes, like Mahomes has done those types of passes, and Joe Burrow, I think, did it this past season or maybe 2 seasons ago, where he was, the Superman parallel to the ground. But again, those guys have the skill to do that. I don't think Sam Howell does. And they need a QB2 in my opinion, because I also don't think Max Brosmer is good enough to be the QB2 on this roster. And JJ McCarthy at this point, again, I think he will end up having a great career. I think he will eventually turn out, but I don't know if he's going to turn out this year. And I think the Vikings are putting him in a fantastic opportunity to succeed, because they have him as they have such a good O-line in front of him, and they have such good weapons for him to actually throw to. But he is still a question mark to me right now, and obviously injuries always happen too. So not knock on wood, I don't want anyone to get injured on the Vikings, but I think they do need to have that contingency plan in case something goes wrong, whether that be injury or McCarthy not playing well. Because I don't think the Wilfs, as the ownership group, are going to accept we lost our starting quarterback and we just had to patch it. I think they look at this roster, unlike a couple of years ago, and think that this roster is good enough to go win a Super Bowl, especially the defense. The defense is fantastic. I think this team, except for the question mark that they have at quarterback and maybe some of the receiver depth, because Addison's going to be out, those are the two glaring issues to me. Is the receiver depth behind Addison when he's off of his suspension. Jefferson is the wide receiver 1, Addison's the wide receiver 2. After that, there is not a whole lot there. Obviously, it doesn't help that Rondell Moore got injured. He looks like he's going to be out for a while. And it doesn't, that wide receiver room after those top 2 guys, which are, again, are 2 fantastic top 2 guys, it's thin. It's really, really thin. And now you can look at obviously TJ Hawkinson is a target. He is a target, but again, that's a tight end. That he's not going to be running routes on every single play, because he's going to be blocking, and I think too with like they need a wide receiver 3. They need to go out and get a wide receiver 3 that is better than the penciled in wide receiver Jalen Naylor wide receiver 3 is right now. Like I think they need that right now. And again, if that's my biggest gripe, is a QB2 and a wide receiver 3, that is a fantastic roster. It's still a fantastic roster. If we're nitpicking the lower end guys, like that's still a fantastic roster. So those are my, again, ended up going longer than I thought I would on the second preseason game of the season. But let us go to, right, I promised last time I would have the predictions, my best and worst case scenario predictions. So we will start with the worst case scenario. And this is my worst case scenario prediction here. We'll run through this, and then we'll put up the best case scenario in its spot in just a second here. So I have a win against the Chicago Bears. I have a win over the Atlanta Falcons. And I have them losing to Cincinnati and losing to Pittsburgh. I think that Pittsburgh game, after a week of travel there, I think that could be a sneaky loss. Obviously, Cincinnati with their offense, I think regardless of who wins, I think that the Bengals game is going to be a shootout. I think that's absolutely going to be a shootout. So that one is a loss for me in the worst case. But then I have them. I realize I have them listed as the Cleveland Bengals. That should say the Cleveland Browns. I have that as a win in London the next week, and then they have a bye. And then this is the scariest part of the schedule. Week 7 to week 14 or to week 15. Week 7 to week 15 is the scariest part of the schedule. Excuse me one second. I've got a tickle in my throat here. Yeah, sorry. Week 7 coming out of the bye to week 15 is the scariest part of the schedule. They go against Philadelphia, the defending champs. That's a loss. At the LA Chargers, that's a loss. I think Jim Harbaugh will be able to pick apart his old quarterback's weaknesses, and I think that's a loss. I think at Detroit is a loss. Home against the Bengals, that is a loss. So that is 4 straight losses before they host the Chicago Bears. I think they pick up a win there. I am not a believer in the Chicago Bears whatsoever. They are the new Detroit Lions, where I need to see it before I actually believe it. So I have a win in week 11 against the Chicago Bears. Then they go to Green Bay. I have them losing against the Green Bay Packers. They seem to struggle against the Seahawks when they're in Seattle. So I have that as a loss. I have them losing to the Washington Commanders. Then they go to Dallas, and again, Dallas could be a team that's back up if Micah Parsons gets his contract situated. I think that could very well be a loss. And then going to the New York Giants, they're atrocious. I don't see us losing to them. Again, knock on wood. We'll bring this back in a couple months when they inevitably lose to the Giants, but I've got that as a win right now. And then final 2 games at home against the Detroit Lions, that's a loss. And then against the Green Bay Packers, that is also a loss. So worst case scenario, I have them going 5-12. I think this roster is too good for them to get less than 5 wins. And again, this is also asterisks, like the entire team doesn't get hurt too. This is obviously worst case scenario is everybody goes down to go 0-17. That is absolute worst case scenario. So this is like realistic worst case scenario. So it's 5-12 overall and 2-4 in the division. Only 2 wins coming against the Chicago Bears. But if we go on to the best case scenario, I'm pulling that up right now. Again, I don't think either of these 2 options are particularly realistic. I think if you ask some fans, these 2 scenarios are the only 2 options, but I don't see either of these 2 options being particularly realistic. So then, again, Cleveland Bengals, I just copied and pasted the schedule I had written down. So again, it says the Cleveland Bengals again. That should say the Cleveland Browns. But week 1 at the Chicago Bears, I've got that as a win. I've got them beating the Falcons, just like in the other one. So they start off 2-0. I've got them beating the Cincinnati Bengals. Again, that defense in Cincinnati does not look that good. So I've got them, if they can hold off in that shootout. The Vikings defense is far better than the Cincinnati Bengals defense. So if they can just hold off that Cincinnati Bengals offense, I think that could very well be a win. And obviously, I think they are better than the Steelers, but the Steelers are one of those teams where it is kind of a trap game. So, but in this one, I've got them as a win. I've got them beating the Cleveland Bengals, actually. No, the Cleveland Browns in London. Then coming home out of the bye in week 7, they lose to the Philadelphia Eagles. Then they go to the Chargers where they win on a short week. That is Thursday Night Football. So I've got them beating the LA Chargers. And then they go to Detroit. That's an L. They have not beaten Detroit in a very long time. I think it was KOC's first year at home was the last time they beat the Detroit Lions. And that was the first time they played the Lions in that season. Then week 10, hosting the Baltimore Ravens. I've got that as a loss. And then week 11, the Chicago Bears. I've got that as a win. At the Green Bay Packers, very well could be a win. They always seem to do well in the first game against the Green Bay Packers. So I've got that one as a win. And then I've got at Seattle as also a win. I could see them, again, like Jim Harbaugh could very well do against the Vikings in LA in picking apart their quarterback that they helped build up. I could see him picking them apart. No, the KOC picking apart Sam Darnold in Seattle. So I've got that as a win. I've got in this scenario, I've got the Washington Commanders as a win. I could see Jaden Daniels taking a step back and that team taking a step back as a whole, like Houston did with CJ Stroud. So I've got that as a win. I've got the Dallas Cowboys. Again, Jerry Jones is absolutely dysfunctional as an owner. Sorry, one more time. Got to mute. Jerry Jones, dysfunctional owner. If that Micah Parsons contract doesn't work itself out, I think that is a win for the Vikings. I've got the New York Giants as a win again, and then they finally end the streak at home against the Lions with a win, and then they lose to the Pack. It always seems like that last game against the Packers, which is always week 16, 17, or 18. And it always seems to be in Minnesota, and they get absolutely slaughtered in that game. So I've got that one as an L in their best case scenario. So best case scenario, I've got them going 13-4 with a 4-2 in division record, losing once to the Lions and once to the Packers. So that is my 13-4 is my ceiling. 5-12 is their floor. I know that is a massive ceiling to floor, but that's what you have. What happens when you have a massive question mark at quarterback? And again, I think he will end up being good, but I don't know if that'll be this year. So it is still a question mark at quarterback with JJ McCarthy until you see it in an actual game. Not just a one series drive in a preseason game. So, but yeah, so 13-4 or 5-12 somewhere. I think it's probably going to be realistically somewhere in between 7-10, or I should say 9-12 wins. We'll say 9-12 wins is probably where they end up. But let's move on to predictions. Had 3 come off the board. All 3 of them ended up being wrong. So the Vikings will beat the Patriots. They did not. Patriots scored less than 15 points. They scored 20. And the Vikings scored 25 plus points. They scored 12. So that is 19-53 for 36%. Did I change that one? I might not have changed that one. That is 19. Yeah, 19. That is correct. 19 for 53 for 36%. The 3 predictions going on the board now are the Vikings score 20 plus points in Tennessee against the Titans this weekend. The Vikings will beat the Titans this weekend. Again, records don't really matter, or excuse me, the score doesn't really matter except for in the predictions they do. And then Will Reichert will make all of his kicks against the Titans for the 3rd straight preseason week. All right, now moving on to Target Field Talkers. We have a couple of things to go over, a couple of series that happened this past week. So the big news that came out last week too. Let's go over the team rankings in this past week though, and then look ahead, and then we will go over the news at the end. So team rankings, they are, their record is 58-66. The Twins are. They are 4th place in the AL Central. They are 9th place in the wild card, like 9.5 games back now. So they are, again, I've been saying they're basically just out of it completely at this point. Hitting rankings, they are batting .238, which is 24th. Their on-base percentage is .309, tied for 20th. .396 slugging, that is 18th. On-base plus slugging is .706, which is 20th. How many runs they have scored is 22nd, which is 517 runs scored. They have 144 home runs. They got 12 dozen home runs exactly. That is 14th in the MLB. Walks, they are 369, which is 24th in the MLB. Strikeouts, 14th fewest, 1,028 strikeouts at the plate. Stolen bases is 61, which is tied for 24th. So again, they just continue to not run. I think that part is just going to have to be fixed next season at this point. I don't think they're changing their philosophy at this point. And at some point, it just is on Rocco to get guys moving, literally. Pitching and fielding rankings, the ERA is 4.24, which is tied for 21st. WHIP is 1.28, tied for 15th. Strikeouts is 1,045, that is 14th most. Walks, they are 4th at 337. Errors, 57, tied for 9th. Fielding percentage is 987, which is tied for 8th. And then looking back at the games from this past week, they did play 7 games. They had 3 games in New York playing the Yanks. They lost games 1 and 2, and then they lost 6-2 and 9-1 before winning game 3 4-1 on an absolute masterclass by Joe Ryan. Again, another Joe Ryan masterclass. He pitched 6 2/3 innings, gave up 4 hits, 1 earned run, 7 strikeouts, and 2 walks. So again, in a stadium that the Twins have not had a lot of success in. It was built in, I believe it was 2009, new Yankee Stadium was, and they have been awful at Yankee Stadium since then. So he looked absolutely fantastic against the Yankees in New York. So again, that is, again, very much a bright spot in this for sure. The starting rotation is the brightest spot. You could say it's either him or Keyshaw look like the 2 brightest, and then him, Keyshaw, and Buxton look like the 3 brightest spots. So those 3 guys are fantastic. So to come back home against Detroit, they lose the first 3 games. Game 1, they lost 4-3 in 11. Now, I wanted to just break down this game really quickly here. Rocco did get ejected in this game on a pretty bad call by the umpire. But the reason I bring this up is he was barking at the ump from the dugout. He got ejected and came out and just was screaming at the umpire. And the reason I bring this up is Corey Provis did a fantastic job on the broadcast of this. And it's because he didn't do anything. It's because he stepped away from the mic and just let the on the field mics pick everything up and let the fans hear what Rocco was saying and the like KOC on the broadcast, he might have dropped a couple F-bombs, but his were more unintentional, not intending to be on the broad, not knowing he was, being heard by the broadcast. But yeah, Provis, fantastic job by Provis there to just step aside and let the fans hear what Rocco was saying. So I also thought the Twins hitters did a good job in the first couple innings to get to Skubal. He did not look that great in the first couple innings, but then obviously turned into Tariq Skubal. And after that, but yeah, the offense did a good job of getting to Skubal early. Just didn't fully pan out in the end. So, yeah, then they lose game 2, 7-0, game 3, 8-5, before they won game 4, 8-1. That was the Corey Koski Twins Hall of Fame induction ceremony before that game. So again, they finally figure out how to put the bat on the ball. Again, may have been old friend Chris Paddock. But again, another thing from that game that I thought was fantastic was Brooks Lee. Brooks Lee looks a lot more, a lot more relaxed, and we can put in a clip. If you haven't seen it yet, go watch the entire episode. Go watch the entire interview. But we'll put in a clip now from the interview with Marissa Voss, talking about why maybe I agree with her on what the locker room was like, clubhouse was like beforehand. So we'll put that in now.
Hot take for the Twins.
Hot take for the Twins that they're going to be they're going to make the playoffs this year.
Really? I mean, that could be, I think it was Jeffers maybe was saying that they're now playing with no expectations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're going to make the playoffs because here's the thing about the Minnesota Twins is when there's a lot of expectations on them and they've got a little weight on their shoulders, it's the outcome doesn't come very well. It doesn't happen because that's why you can look back to also like the drought that we had and the losing streak we had with the playoffs and everything. When the Twins are like an organization have so much weight on them, I think it really doesn't amount, and it translates to the field, right? Because baseball's a lot of politics. As much as it is just baseball, it's politics, and I think this year politics have seeped into that, and it really has put that weight on them. And now I think that they're going to prove everyone wrong because now everybody's like looking at them after the fire sale, after the Pohlads, after all of this hate, every single thing that has gone on. I'm like getting my allergies are acting up, so excuse me. Everything that has gone on with them, I think that what the last thing that they're expecting and the fans are expecting is for them to be good, and that is when they're going to be great. Because of exactly what Ryan Jeffers said. So they're playing free, they're getting back to the basics, and they're learning to love the game like they used to when they were kids. Yeah. I also think that due to a certain somebody at shortstop who is gone in the clubhouse, I think that also has something to do with it because I think he was a lot more of a negative force than a lot of people thought. I think a lot of fans didn't even get that and understand that. And I think he was not as good for the team as everybody thought.
Right, and maybe had some medical issues going on too that were underreported. Allegedly,
of course. Allegedly.
And then, so Carlos Correa, again, I believe was a massive part of this clubhouse drama, and I think it was Pablo who pitched a sim game. Said something about the locker room is the culture in the clubhouse is a lot better now. And again, the biggest piece that they got rid of that seemed to be toxic in the clubhouse was Carlos Correa. So I think he was more of a cancer in the locker room than people thought initially. So but yeah, if we look ahead here. Real quick. Brooks Lee also hit a grand slam on Sunday in their win over the Tigers, so that's why I brought Brooks Lee up. If we look ahead, they play 3 games at home against the Athletics, and then they play 3 games in Chicago against the White Sox. So those are their next 6 games. But the big news that came out recently I believe it was last Wednesday. The Pohlads sent a letter out that basically said that they were retaining the team. And I am actually going to pull this up here and read it quick because there are some things in here that actually need to be addressed. And so it's a letter from the Pohlad family, and broken up into a couple different paragraphs. So it says, for more than 4 decades, our family has had the privilege of owning the Minnesota Twins. This franchise has become a part of our family's story, as it has for our employees, our players, this community, and Twins fans everywhere. Over the past several months, we explored a wide range of potential investments and ownership opportunities. Our focus throughout has been on what's best for the long-term future of the Twins. We have been fully open to all possibilities. After a detailed, robust process, our family will remain the principal owner of the Minnesota Twins. To strengthen the club in a rapidly evolving sports landscape, one that demands strong partnerships, fresh ideas, and long-term vision, we are in the process of adding 2 significant limited partnership groups, each of whom will bring a wealth of experience and share our family values. We see and hear the passion from our partners, the community, and Twins fans. That passion inspires us. This ownership group is committed to building a winning team and culture for this region, one Twins fans are proud to cheer for. So it's obviously the first couple paragraphs are fine. They're hate that they're keeping the team, but it's the last paragraph that I think Twins fans have the biggest problem with. It's we see and hear the passion from our partners, the community, and Twins fans. That passion inspires us. The ownership group is committed to building a winning team and culture for this region, one that Twins fans are proud to cheer for. Twins fans want to cheer for this team. They do. I don't believe that Twins fans are at fault for this. Twins fans want to cheer for the Twins. They don't want to cheer for the Pohlads, though. And they say that passion inspires us, is what the exact quote was. The passion that was chanting "sell the team" at the Twins post-game show. And for those that haven't seen the Twins post-game show, the desk is basically in the concourse. Like, it's off to the side of the concourse, but if you're walking in the main concourse on the lower level on the first base side, if you come in through one of the either gate 29 or 34, which are like the 2 big entrances at Target Field, the desk is like right there, right in that area of the concourse. They were chanting, the fans were chanting, "Sell the team." That's the passion that inspires you. I hope that's the passion that inspires you to actually go out and sell the team. And the passion doesn't inspire them. It objectively does not inspire them. If the passion actually inspired them, they would not have slashed payroll after winning a playoff game for the first time since 2002. They would not have cut payroll. They would not have signed back with Bally Sports North for a year. They have systematically, over the last 2 years, for the last 20 months, have systematically dismantled this team to a point where fans do not care about this team anymore. They don't. It's absolutely ridiculous that the Pohlads actually had the gall to put out this letter that said, your passion inspires us. That is a complete lie. There was another one I saw that it was a letter from the Pohlad. We'll put a link to it down in the description. I don't know if I can read all of it on this one, but basically saying what this is what the letter should have been, and we'll read the a couple of sentences from it in that last paragraph. We know fans want a winning team, and we want that too. But we also have to admit the Twins have been asked to help cover the losses elsewhere. That reality may shape budgets in the seasons ahead. We're grateful for your loyalty, and we hope we can earn it back both on and off the field. That's basically what that's what their actions are saying. Their memo, the letter from the Pohlad family, didn't say that, but that's what their actions said. They care more about the actual business part of it and want you to get into the stadium than actually putting a winning team on the field. And again, some of the trades, I'm not saying that they should not have sold anything at this trade deadline. This trade deadline, again, I think this was the title it was my saying a couple episodes ago. This trade deadline was not what killed the Minnesota Twins. This trade deadline put the nail in the coffin. What killed the Minnesota Twins was slashing payroll, was not bringing Sonny Gray back after he helped win the first playoff series in 2 decades. It was not having a streaming service for years, not building a young fan base for this team, this sport that's dying. That's what killed the Minnesota Twins. And a team without a stadium named the Tampa Bay Rays can buy or can get sold for $1.7 billion, but the Twins can't. To me, that says more about the ownership and the business side of it than anything on the field ever will. So I am absolutely just sick of the Pohlads at this point, and I don't care anymore. I don't care about the Pohlads. I don't care at this point. So it's just over it at this point, and don't want to keep ranting because blood pressure is going to go through the roof at that point. So, yeah, we will move on here to the predictions. Had 3 or 4 come off the board from this past week. First, Jorge Alcala. This should have come off, or should come off at the end of the year because things can obviously change, but I'll revisit it if it actually comes true. Jorge Alcala will have the second lowest reliever ERA in 2025. When he left the Twins, it was 8.8. So I don't think that is going to becoming true. Again, if it somehow does, again, the Pohlads should be forced to sell the team if that somehow happens. But I'll reverse this if it actually does come true. So second one is that Royce will hit at least 1 home run against the Yankees in New York. He did not. Twins split the series with the Tigers. They lost 3 out of the 4 games. Obviously not a split. And then the Yankees take at least 2 out of 3 against the Twins. That was correct. That brings it up to 13 out of 54 predicted for 24%. 3 predictions coming on the board here. First one is that Luke Keeschall hits at least 1 home run against the White Sox and/or Athletics. Royce Lewis hits at least 1 home run against the Athletics and/or White Sox, and Byron Buxton will hit at least 1 home run against the Athletics and/or White Sox. So these 3 guys in the next 6 games will each have at least one home run. All right, moving on now to our final team segment, the Rinkside Rundown. We do have let's start with the Frost. There's no new news coming out of the Frost this week, so we're not really going to touch on them at all this week. So we do have some new news coming out though about the Kirill contract update. And again, Michael Russo the other day, a couple days, like the 13th or 14th maybe, went on the DFO Rundown podcast, and he he stated that the two sides, Bill Guerin, the Wild, and Kirill Kaprizov are not that far financially apart. And it seems that there has been some stuff that has been lost in translation this offseason. And again, like I said, Kirill is in Russia. He has been spending his summer in Russia, and I think he was playing at Zuki's charity match, so he is in Europe. But Guerin is waiting for him to get back to Minnesota to negotiate the last final parts of the contract extension. So, again, yeah, good news from Russo there. They are not financially that far apart. Obviously, they are apart because the contract is not done yet, but they are not that far apart as of now. So, the other thing, to make this longer than a 2-minute segment, we will link this in the description down below. The New York Times and The Athletic put out a poll for the Minnesota Wild all-time team for their 25th anniversary. And so they, this past season was, or maybe it's this upcoming season is their 25th anniversary. I can't remember exactly, but they put out a poll, and you can go in and rank it. Again, we'll link to that poll and that story down below in the description if you want to go fill one out yourself. It is just a Google survey. So I am basically taking the idea from them and am putting together what I think is and I used, if you think someone is out of position, I am using what they put as the position. So you on that survey, you go in and rank the top 4 left wingers, and then the top 4 centers, and the top 4 right wingers. So I am using what they did, and I am creating a lineup, a 4 forward lines, 3 defensive pairs, and then a starting and a backup goalie. So that is what I am doing. And yeah, I'll go through this. We can talk about each line. I was trying to figure out how to cover it, but it wasn't working super well. So I am going to just reveal it all at once on screen. I do have a graphic for it, and we will roll with that graphic here, and then we will get into predictions after that, because this is the only big thing that is worthy to talk about, other than the Kirill contract update. So, as for the roster, here is that roster. So, going over the forwards here, the top line was the easiest line. The top line and the goalies, to me, were the 2 easiest things to come up with. The top forward line being Kirill Kaprizov on the left wing. I think he is the most skilled player in team history. I think he's probably the best player already in team history. Mikko Koivu is the center, because he has the absolute longevity of it. I think he has the most points in team history and the most games played in team history, as well as a couple other statistical leaders, but those 2 are the 2 big ones. And then Marian Gaborik, who I believe was the most skilled player on the team until Kirill Kaprizov came along. So those 3 are my top line. Left wing, Kirill; center, Mikko Koivu; and right wing, Marian Gaborik. Line 2, I have Zach Parise as the left wing. Eric Stahl, because of his one fantastic year where I think he had 42 or 43 goals in 17, 18 maybe. I can't remember. It was somewhere around there, the late 2010s. And then Matt Zuccarello, because he has been very good with the Wild statistically in his years with the Wild. So Matt Zuccarello is my right wing. And my second line right wing, Zach Parise and Matt Zuccarello, centered by Eric Stahl. On line 3, I have Brian Rolliston as my third line left wing. I have Joel Eriksson Ek as my center. Again, he has been fantastic, especially defensively. Those 2 guys together would be fantastic on a third line forward pair defensively together. And then Kevin Fiala as the scoring winger on that line. I think they would do pretty well together. They can defend, and I put Fiala there as his peak. Basically, his peak year was, I think, carrying him to this third line spot. As you can see, I left guys out like Charlie Coyle, Nino Niederreiter, Mikhail Granlund, and basically just because they didn't actually live up to their full potential, and they are getting knocked for that. So, I'm not saying that all of these guys perfectly lived up to their potential, but I think all of these guys fill a role better on this hypothetical theoretical all-time team. And then my fourth line here, I'm going the grinder, physical line as the fourth line. I've got Cal Clutterbuck on the right wing, Wes Walls up the middle, and then can't forget, rest in peace, Derek Bugard. He was, again, probably another easy pick, one of the other easiest picks for me to be the fourth line left winger, or Derek Bugard. Again, he when he was on this team, he, I think, was averaging the least amount of ice time per game on the team, but his jersey sales were the highest, obviously, because he was fighting all the time. So he, to me, deserves a line because he filled that role so well. He deserves the fourth line left wing spot on this roster to me. And those other two just, I feel like, would play well with him on that fourth line, especially Clutterbuck being physical. And those especially Cal that led the league in hits so many years, and Bugard that led the league in fights so many years. If Gabby or Kirill get roughed up a little bit, you go send those two guys out against the line that roughed them up. So they're your enforcers to keep the superstars safe and happy. As for the defensive pair here, the defensive pairings, I've got Spurgeon and Brodin as your top pair. I actually really like those two playing together. Throughout their careers, two of the most underrated defenders in the NHL. So I really like those two playing together. I've got then Brett Burns and Ryan Suter. Again, Wild fans hate Ryan Suter now because of how cheap he played. He definitely played very cheaply with Minnesota, but we didn't care because he was on our team. But Brett Burns being the offensive guy and Derek Bugard being the defensive guy, I feel like would balance each other out a lot. And then on the third pair, I've got Nick Schultz and Brock Faber. And again, Brock Faber might be the most controversial pick on this lineup here because he has only been here for 4 years, and he's 23 years old. He's the youngest on this team, just hasn't been in the NHL that long. But again, I think he has shown enough already to be in that third pair, and maybe that's indicative of what the lack of depth that this team has at some of these positions. So again, the goalies then final, I think, were the two easiest to pick. Best goalie in team history in Nick Backstrom. Again, we'll link that description down below too. Backstrom, got to interview him. My favorite goalie growing up, still might be one of my favorite goalies of all time. But he was to me the best goalie in team history. And then Devin Dubnyk, mostly because of his run when he got traded here, was absolutely insane. That second half of the year, where I think he played it was 40 straight games or 38 straight games or something like that. He also has the most wins in a single season in team history too. So to me, he has to be the backup. But he doesn't overtake Backstrom, I think, because he would let in some super soft goals from time to time. So to me, this is the 25th anniversary team. And this would be the all-time team too, because they've only been around for obviously 25 years. They did the quarter century team back in January, February. The NHL did. So to me, this is basically just the same thing. So moving on to predictions. The nothing came off the board for the Rinkside Rundown, so we're just going to go straight into the 3 coming on the board here. And that is, I think John Hines gets fired before the first preseason game in 2026. I think the Frost win more OT games than they lose in this upcoming season. And Kirill Kaprizov signs with the Wild for exactly 8 years. So I think they're going to get him on that massive contract. All right, moving on to power rankings now. The this new power ranking segment. Again, if you don't know what it is, if you're new here, we take a topic from Minnesota sports and rank a top 10. In my opinion, if you want to agree or disagree with me on any of these lists, please let me know down below where you think I went wrong. And if you want to suggest a topic, also leave that down below too. We've done fan suggestions before. We've done single game performances by a single player. That was a fan suggestion. So we've got a couple. I do have some other ideas in mind written down, but we will definitely take your suggestions too. So please leave those down below, and we'll give you a shout out too when we use your thing. So here for this one, it is the top 10 Minnesota sports teams that should have won a championship that did not. So obviously we are not including any of the Lynx teams that won. The Frost, we can't use any of the Frost teams because they've only been in existence for 2 years. And they've won both times. And we're not using 87 or 91 Twins that say, oh, they should have won, and they did win. They had to have not won the championship, but they should have won it. So we have the top 10, and then I'll go into a little bit here about each team too. So at number 10, it is the 2020 Minnesota United, the Loons. They were in the they went 9-7-5 in the regular season, and they made it to the Western Conference Finals, and they were up 2-0 in the finals before LA scored in minute 75 of the 80-minute or the 90-minute match, and ended up coming back and winning 3-2. So again, just like every Minnesota team, the United are no strangers to choking playoff games in the last couple minutes. So coming in at number 9 now, it is the 2017 Minnesota Vikings. Some people might think that this one should be rated higher, but they also had Case Keenum at quarterback. So I just want to say that because of that, there wasn't as high as expectations going in as some of these other teams that we'll see here. But because of that, I can't rank them much higher than number 9. At number 8, we have the 2023-24 Minnesota Timberwolves. Again, this was that team a couple years ago that ended up losing to the Dallas Mavericks in the Western Conference Finals. Again, I do believe that Ant got hurt against the Nuggets because he just was not playing super well. And then after he had some time to rest, he did play super well in the Olympics. So I believe that he was hurt in that series against the Dallas Mavericks. So again, they were 3 wins away from making it to the finals, and they come in at number 8. At number 7 here, we go to the rink, and it is the 1981 Minnesota North Stars as the number 7 team that should have won a Stanley Cup. They, in the regular season, went 35, 28, and 17, and then they lost. They made it all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals, and they lost 4-1 in the championship round. And after having a very good regular season, and then they got gentlemen swept in the Stanley Cup Finals, and that's a Stanley Cup Finals where they didn't really even stand a chance because they were down 3-1 or 3-0 in the first 3 games. So they come in at number 7. At number 6, we stay in hockey, but go to the NCAA level with the Minnesota Golden Gophers in 2022. And that one, they did also made it to the championship game, the national championship game. And they, this was the team that lost to Quinnipiac in overtime. So they were literally 1 goal away from winning it all in 2022. And this is a team that had Logan Cooley and Jimmy Snuggerud and Matthew Nyes and Brock Faber, who just made our team with the Rinkside Rundown. So this team had an insane amount of talent on it and like future NHL talent on it. But they just could not get it done when it mattered the most at the end of the day. So they were, again, higher than some of the other teams because they were just 1 goal away from winning it all in overtime, in a sudden death overtime against Quinnipiac. So, yeah, they come in at number 6. At number 5 here, going back to the gridiron, we have the 2009 Minnesota Vikings. This was the Brett Favre year. Percy Harvin and AP were wreaking havoc on NFL teams, and they lost in the NFC Conference Championship game after Brett Favre threw an interception. And I think this team was, would have beaten the Colts if the Saints, hadn't beaten them in the Conference Championship game. I think they were also better than the Colts. So this team very well could have won the Super Bowl that year. Up to number 4, we have the 03-04 Minnesota Timberwolves. This team was underratedly stacked. So they went 58-24 in the regular season. So a lot of regular season success. They had great success over a massive sample size. That was the year KG won MVP. He was an all-star that year. He was on NBA first team All-NBA. He was on all defensive first team. He was 6th place in defensive player of the year. So KG just went off that year. And people don't remember this. Sam Cassell was 10th in MVP voting. They had 2 players in the top 10 of the MVP voting. And Sam Cassell was also an all-star that year. He was on All-NBA second team. So Sam Cassell was a fantastic Robin to KG's Batman that year. And then Fred Hoiberg, coming off the bench, was 15th in 6th man of the year voting. So the 2003-2004 Timberwolves had a stacked roster, improved it in the regular season, but just couldn't, put it all together in the playoffs. So going back in time, back over to the gridiron here at number 3, the 1998 Minnesota Vikings. And again, this one people might say should be higher on the list. But I don't even think that this is the best Minnesota Vikings team that never won a Super Bowl. I think there's another team, which we'll get to in just a second, that didn't win the Super Bowl. But again, the Vikings were 15-1, and they lost in the NFC Championship game again, like 2009, and it was because of a Gary Anderson missed field goal. So I think because they were just that close, they easily could have won it. So yeah, just a missed field goal. And again, I think they were better than I forget who won the Super Bowl that year, but whoever the Falcons played in the Super Bowl, I think they could have easily won that one too. So coming in at number 2 here, we have the last Vikings team, the 1969 Minnesota Vikings. Again, let me just read you this team. They were going into the Super Bowl with a 12-2 record, and a 14-2 record. 14-2 record. They were also 12-point favorites that season. 12-point favorites in the Super Bowl that year. They lost by over 20. That year was also the year Alan Page won MVP as a defensive player. He won MVP on defense. That team should have won the Super Bowl. If you've got the MVP on defense, and he was so good that he beat out all of the offensive players for MVP, you should have, and you were 12 points favorites in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs. You should have won the Super Bowl that year. I'm sorry, you should have. So, 1969 Minnesota Vikings should have won the Super Bowl. But the number one team, to me, is the 2006 Minnesota Twins. They were 96-66 in the regular season. Morneau won the MVP, and he was also a Silver Slugger. Joe Mauer, he was an All-Star and a Silver Slugger. He was also 6th in MVP. Torrey Hunter won a Gold Glove in center field. Johan Santana won the Cy Young Award. He was also an All-Star, and he was 7th in MVP voting. They had 3 players in the top 7 of the MVP voting that year. Francisco Liriano, he was an All-Star. He was 3rd in Rookie of the Year voting. Joe Nathan, the closer, was 5th in Cy Young Award winning, in the Cy Young Award. 5th, a closer, was 5th in the Cy Young Award. He was 18th in the MVP voting. That is absolutely unheard of for a closer to be in the top 20. They had 4 players in the top 20, and one of them was their closer. That is insane. I don't know how this team didn't even win a playoff game. That is the biggest mystery to me on any of these teams, is how the 2006 Minnesota Twins did not win a playoff game. So that is my list. 2020 Minnesota United at 10, 2017 Minnesota Vikings, that's the Minneapolis Miracle team. 2023-24 Minnesota Timberwolves. 80-81 Minnesota North Stars. 21-22 Minnesota Golden Gophers. 2009 Minnesota Vikings. 03-04 Minnesota Timberwolves. 98 Minnesota Vikings. 69 Minnesota Vikings. And 06 Minnesota Twins. All right, that'll do it here for episode 33 of the 301 show. Please like this video and subscribe. Comment down below where you agree or disagree with me on any of these things. I especially do want to hear your thoughts on my 25th anniversary team of the Minnesota Wild and the teams that maybe should have won a championship too. So let me know all of those things down in the comment section below, and we will see you next time on episode 34 of the 301 show. Peace.